Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, I hope you guys are staying safe. Smash the like button and hit the subscribe button on this video. Hit the share button. Let's get straight into this, guys. Guys, I think Terence Crawford has tried to probably follow a route that Canelo Alvarez has followed, and I thought he should do this as well. I thought he should follow the route, become a free agent. The only problem with this is that I think Terence Crawford's career is going to stall. I think Terence Crawford has got a huge problem. If I'm brutally honest with you, I think Terence Crawford has got a huge problem. Although he's as gifted and as talented as Canelo Alvarez, and he's one of the best fighters in the world like Canelo Alvarez, he's going to have a huge problem because Canelo Alvarez is a massive draw and a huge pay-per-view. He sells huge numbers on pay-per-view. Crawford don't do that. So Crawford's going to have a massive problem where Crawford's probably going to be in the Who Needs Me club. DAZN aren't going to want to pay Crawford the money that he's getting paid, because you got to realize is, I know Crawford was quite critical of Bob, and I don't know what their verbal agreement they had. Crawford was getting paid a lot of money for really how much he sells. The money that he was getting paid, a good pay-per-view fight, a top quality, and Crawford deserves that kind of money. His talent deserves that kind of money. Unfortunately, Crawford doesn't sell to where, they were making a loss with Terence Crawford. And that's not his fault. It's not his fault. He goes in the ring and performs. It's the promoter's job to sell the fight. So it's not Crawford's fault that, he's not able to sell. For me, it is as well. I think he's part of the problem. At the end of the day, I feel like the fighter the fighter has to do more in order to sell themselves. It's not just the promoter. If you look at some of the great fighters that were massive draws, they sold themselves as well. It wasn't just the promoter. It was their own. They kind of sold themselves. Terence Crawford doesn't do that for some reason. You have to say that he has been badly promoted. But if you look at Top Rank and you look at some of the fighters they've got, how many fighters have they got that have been huge success on pay-per-view? You have to say that a lot of their fighters have been, they're not big draws. So is that because that's poor promotion from Bob Arum? Bob Arum is getting on. He's not really, moving with the times, some people will say. Some fighters just don't sell. Andre Ward was like that. He just didn't sell. He wasn't a big name, wasn't a big draw, and he didn't sell, unfortunately. That's just some fighters, unfortunately, suffer that. But I do think Terence Crawford's career right now might stall, because if Terence Crawford isn't worth the money for some promotional, for some networks, they're going to think, why are we going to pay this guy $7-8 million if we're not going to make that money back? So Terence Crawford might get sidelined. He might be difficult for him to get a fight. And I hope that's not the case, because Terence Crawford is one of the best fighters in the world, and it'd be a damn shame if he just goes missing. Especially now with what he did with Top Rank. Is there a possibility that they're most likely going to turn their back? I don't see him working with Top Rank. Also, other promoters might think, oh, hang on a minute, do we really want to work with him? Because you kind of think that if you don't deliver for him, is he going to take action against us as well? So it kind of puts others off, and especially when you're not a big draw. Do you see what I mean? When you're not a big draw and they know that they're not going to really benefit financially that much, because Crawford's not really a big draw. So they're going to be more conservative with promoting Crawford, because they know he's not really a big draw, and if we don't deliver him what he asked for, we may be at the center of some action. So yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for Crawford moving forward. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think he'll be able to emulate Canelo Alvarez. Alvarez is a massive draw, a pay-per-view star. Crawford isn't going to be able to follow the footsteps of Canelo Alvarez. So Crawford's got a serious problem, in my opinion, because I just don't know whether he's going to be able to get the fights that he craves because of his popularity, because of his star power. I'm not sure whether he's going to be able to get the big fights which will be a be a damn shame, to be honest with you, because Crawford, like I said, he's one of the best fighters in the world. He's an elite fighter, Terence Crawford, and I believe probably beats every single welterweight. But the fact is he's not a big pay-per-view star, and that's going to be a huge problem for him moving forward. A huge problem for him, because being a free agent only works when you're Canelo Alvarez, when you move the needle. Do you see what I mean? Canelo can fight on different broadcasters. He can fight with ESPN, he can fight with he can fight with Matchroom. Everyone's making him offers because they know that if he comes on their platform, he's going to make them a lot of money. He's probably the only fighter which that would be able to generate a huge, although his guarantee is massive, but I still think that the shows that he's involved in can generate a huge profit. Not a huge profit, but a substantial profit, or a big profit compared to all the other boxing shows that happen, where I think most of them are probably making a loss. Or not most of them, but I think some of them are making a loss. Whereas I think Canelo Alvarez, he can generate such money where the promoters, and that's why everybody wants him on their platform. Why do you think everybody giving offers to him? And because everybody wants him on their platform. So I think Crawford has got a big problem, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope Crawford can get the fights, because I really like Terence Crawford. I think he's an excellent fighter, special fighter. I just worry for the direction of his career. I worry for whether he's going to be able to get the big fights. I worry because now what you got to realize, he's turned his back on one promoter, on Top Rank. So he's never going to work with them again. You kind of alienated yourself in a position where the only two promoters now you're going to work with is DAZN and Eddie Hearn and PBC, and both of them have kind of come out. Is Terence Crawford really worth the money that he's asking for? Because the money that Terence Crawford's going to want, are DAZN or PBC going to get that return? Because really, the only big fight that really can be made is the Spence fight, and Eddie Hearn and DAZN can't deliver him that. PBC will deliver him that, but the problem is, as the executive said from the PBC, that the money that Terence Crawford would want for that fight and the money that Spence would want, it wouldn't make that fight viable. It's not that big a fight. It's a good fight in the trade. It's not a big fight. It doesn't cross over. It doesn't cross over to the casuals. That's when businesses or the promoters or networks make profits, when the fight crosses over. Both names aren't that big. Both names aren't that big. You know, where I feel like there are massive, massive stars in the US. I don't think they are. So I personally think Crawford's going to have a big issue with getting those big fights. I don't think he's going to be able to emulate the same thing that Canelo did, because Canelo, like I said, has a huge fan base, and he's a huge pay-per-view star, a huge pay-per-view attraction. He's the face of boxing. Crawford, although as great a fighter as he is, and like I said, he's up there pound for pound, he's not a big pay-per-view star. So he can't do the same things that Canelo did. He's going to have a big issue, a big problem. And that will mean that he won't get the big fights. I do worry for Terence Crawford. I do worry. I'm telling you. I do worry for this, which path or which direction his career is going to go in now. Because even if he signs with Eddie Hearn and DAZN, who's he going to fight? Eddie Hearn hasn't got anyone at welterweight. All the welterweights are with PBC, and who's going to want to fight Terence Crawford? Is Keith Thurman? Keith Thurman might be willing to, but I don't see anybody else. Like Errol Spence, he may move up. What's there going to be left? In my opinion, I think Terence Crawford might have to move up, and even then he'll have to fight the PBC guys. You got to realize is people like PBC may not be willing to pay him the money that he was getting paid with Bob Arum. Because like Bob Arum said, he was making a loss with Crawford. So if he was making a loss, PBC might not be willing to pay him the money, because $6-7 million dollars is a lot of money. Nobody just wants to pay that if they don't feel they're going to see a return on the money he's getting paid. So really, Crawford's getting paid an amount of money where you're guaranteed to make a loss. And even if Spence and Crawford fight, I don't think that fight makes a huge profit, or if it probably makes a loss. Apparently Fury Wilder, which is a massive fight, because of what those two fighters won, didn't make a profit. And those two are on another level to Spence and Crawford. So this is what I'm trying to tell you guys, that fight between Spence and Crawford isn't that big. It's a fight that the fans want, and a lot of fans will pay for it, but how many? For them to generate, they'd probably have to generate 700,000-800,000 pay-per-view buys, which that fight doesn't do. It doesn't generate 700,000-800,000 buys. I'm telling you, neither guy is that big a name. I'll be surprised if it does 500. If it does 500, it would have done well. But does 500,000 pay-per-view buys generate the kind of money that both fighters are going to demand for that particular fight? Because I'm pretty sure both fighters are going to want probably 15 million for each, minimum. And Spence might want more. And I don't think that fight is a 30, 40, 50 million dollar fight. It's not. So they're not going to be making a huge, probably make a loss. Hence why I don't see that fight happening, because I don't think that fight makes business sense, because the fight isn't big enough to pay the fighters what they want. And no one's in the business of making losses, huge losses. Hence why I think that fight's difficult to make. So it wasn't really Bob Arum's fault. Yeah, Bob Arum might have promised him a Spence fight, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it makes business sense. Like, people were talking about, yeah, but we could do it at Top Rank, but the fight's not that big. Why are they going to do it? Like, Fury Wilder was a massive fight. It's heavyweights. Heavyweights get more attention. Heavyweights are much bigger stars. Welterweights aren't that big unless you're like Floyd or Pacquiao. The welterweights have never been, like, you know, unless you're like a unique generational talent like a Sugar Ray Leonard, for example, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya. But these were like rare breeds, you know. These are rare. You don't get fighters like that with that type of name, that type of popularity. Very rare. You know, it's very, very rare. So Crawford and Spence, like, I don't think that fight's going to happen. And I think for Crawford, it's going to be difficult, because he's so badly promoted, in the sense that hardly anyone knows him outside of boxing. And he's not a pay-per-view draw at all. Like, his pay-per-view numbers are terrible. Like, even when he fought Amir Khan, it did like 150,000 or whatever. You know, Postal was 50,000. You know, Porter was 190 or 80 or something like that. Those are very poor pay-per-view numbers, even though I don't think, I just think that's what it is. I think, you know, pay-per-view numbers are dying, apart from if they're Canelo. You know, not very few fighters are doing, I can't think, maybe Jake Paul, but Jake Paul's not really, he's a guy, he's a reality star, like a celebrity. But if you look at the boxers, how many boxers are doing great numbers? Generally, the pay-per-view numbers in America aren't great, unless they're Canelo. You know, which other fighter has done great numbers that's active today in America, other than Canelo? Maybe Fury Wilder, the heavyweights, but apart from the lighter weight classes, apart from Canelo, who's doing big numbers in America? I'm not sure there's anyone. So yeah, I think there's going to be a big problem here with Crawford, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens. Do you guys think that Terence Crawford is going to be able to emulate Canelo? Do you think Terence Crawford is going to be able to take the same route as Canelo? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.